On February 26, 2024, the American Hospital Association released a statement sharing information from Ransom, which claimed that vulnerabilities in ScreenConnect were used to gain an initial foothold in the Change Healthcare attack. However, further investigation after the recording of this episode confirmed that initial access was actually obtained via compromised credential from a Citrix account without multi-factor authenticator. Although this specific vulnerability wasn't used in the Change Healthcare attack, it was confirmed to have been exploited in other healthcare-related breaches.
Imagine this. 3 weeks of downtime for your company, and then you gotta pay ransomware $22 million reportedly. And then they ask you to pay it again. That's bad luck, maybe? Well, let's find out. Thank you for joining. This is Threat Talks. My name is Jan Koning, and from the Security Operations Center here at Ontoit, I welcome you. And the subject of today is ScreenConnect.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
Let me briefly introduce my two guests of today. On my right side, it's Luca Cipriano. He's a threat intel specialist at Ontoit. He hunts threats. He figures out how things go south, so he would be our hacker. Although he is a good guy, he won't do it with bad intentions. And on my other side, it's Rob Maas. He is a field CTO of Ontoit, and his job is to make sure he doesn't stand a chance by applying all kinds of countermeasures against hacks. So let's see. Luca,
yes.
ScreenConnect. Actually, funny thing is we were pre-discussing this threat talk, and we discovered that we had all done our research on ScreenConnect vulnerability, and there were so many incidents. We found about 22 of them or so. Yeah. So we were a bit puzzled because we had different stories, right? But we chose the one that's probably the most impactful, huh?
The most fun.
To you the most fun, of course. Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about it?
Yeah. So first of all, maybe let's say what's ScreenConnect. ScreenConnect is a software that is used for remote connection on hosts. Maybe some people are familiar with AnyDesk or TeamViewer, but more or less it works that way. So remote assistance from IT on a host from a user, for example. So it had a pretty severe vulnerabilities with a CVSS score of 10, and it was successfully used by a hacker group, a ransomware group, to break into Change Healthcare. Change Healthcare is a company that provides data solution for healthcare in the US. Is a really big one, and they managed to deploy the ransomware and exfiltrate data. So you can imagine a lot of data, and of course the ransomware created a lot of issues. You mentioned before 3 weeks of downtime, and as you can imagine, in these 3 weeks nobody was able to process insurance claims, or users were not able to fill in their prescriptions. So it created a huge.
3 weeks is a lot of time.
Yeah, 3 weeks is quite long. It took about 3 weeks to recover the whole situation. Why did I mention it's funny? Well, the fun fact is that allegedly this attack was carried on allegedly by AlphaV, which is a ransomware group which allegedly still helped the Change Healthcare paid 22 million ransom to have their file decrypted and the data not being published on the dark web.
They don't acknowledge this, I believe. Change Healthcare.
No, that's I couldn't find. It's allegedly. All the information I could find is allegedly they paid that. But what happened is that 2 days after receiving the money, AlphaV, they published kind of a fake FBI seizing from their website on the dark web, and they just disappeared. But apparently, for this attack, there was another ransomware associate group that was called Ransom Hub, which said, "Hey, we didn't get our money, so we have your data. Now you give us the money." So I was kind of not really nice situation for.
So how do you know you're actually transferring the money to the right party then?
Yeah. Well, this is quite a weird situation, I guess. I think it's the first time I see something like that. But actually, indeed, it raised the question, like, how are you going to pay the ransomware? How trustworthy it is? Because even if you pay the ransom, they still have your data. I believe, they are a company. They need to have a face. So they need to be trustworthy. So most of the ransomware groups, they won't do it because they have a name that they need to keep. But still, like, then it happens like this, like crypto scams rug pull where they disappear. They got the money, 22 million. It's a lot of money. And then, you can start again a new ransomware group, build up the phase again. So
that's terrible.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like,
and how did they do it? Did this on a technical level?
So on a technical level, they use this ScreenConnect as initial access. So there was a vulnerability in ScreenConnect. So there was an issue in handling HTTP requests. So the attackers could send a request to the server, and everything that it had to do was just to add a slash and write setup wizard.aspx, which is how you start the setup of the server, slash whatever path that did not exist. And this issue was there because this software is created with ASP.NET, which is a framework that is used to build websites, web applications in a dynamic way. And it has to do with the way it handles the request, because it uses routings to route the path to handlers that they are going to do something then. And sometimes to keep dynamic and fast, what they do, they don't really resolve the path exactly how it is. So adding this slash and whatever extra path that did not exist, it's led to access this setup wizard. And there was an extra issue there that the software did not check the status of the software before starting the wizard. So it was not checking, this instance already has been installed. So then, let's start the wizard.
So they tricked the system into reconfiguring from scratch, like it was new.
Exactly. So when...
One step back maybe, so this is a device that's on the edge of the network that's supposed to connect to...
Yeah, to connect to other hosts.
So it's much like the things we talked about before with VPN solutions or Citrix Access Gateway or...
Indeed, and they're dangerous. But this one even more, because a VPN solution is used to connect to something, but this one is used to remote control something. So this server becomes the C2 server of the attacker. So it turns into their infrastructure, and that's
the pleasure of size is still disturbing me.
Yeah, that's crazy. So to track back to the attack, what happened is when the setup wizard starts, then of course the first step is gonna ask, create an admin account, and creating the admin account will override the database, and now all the accounts are not there anymore, and there's only the malicious.
It should be noticeable.
Yeah,
compromised. Then you should notice, I cannot access it anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, but they're already there. I mean, they can start.
But it's not a silent attack.
30 minutes. No, no. So, yeah.
Well, I have a lot of questions for Rob now. But first, so then they basically were the owner of the machine, right? I mean,
they had an admin root access, so they can reconfigure everything, and then they can start from there to...
It all depends. And what did they do in this case? They deployed ransomware somewhere.
They start to connect to remote hosts. Then they do all the dirty deeds like lateral movements and etc. All these kind of things.
Yeah, it's like having a machine.
Well, not even lateral movements. I mean, from there you can already move laterally because you have access everywhere.
If all your hosts are in that database, then you have.
If you have a lot of hosts with clients to connect, then I mean.
Yeah, it's even better than being physically right in the premises with a cable in the wall. It's
less steps involved. Yeah.
Well, Rob, help.
Yeah, this is also a tricky one because there's an edge device. We talked about that before, and of course, then patching comes back as a top priority if there is a patch available. But in the meantime, what could help is putting a firewall in front of it that does IPS or a web application firewall. But also that comes with some caveats.
You mean between the internet and this device? Then?
Yeah, and the ScreenConnect instance. But the challenge there is you should be able to read the traffic. If it is encrypted, it doesn't work. So you have some challenges there, but you can do what they call, in fancy terms, virtual patching. So that you recognize, hey, this is the URL that they are accessing, or the URI to be more precise, and I will block that access to ScreenConnect. So the attacker cannot reach the ScreenConnect instance. In this case, it's a bit tricky, but I think you can do more on the second step, and that's basically where the hosts are being exploited or being ransomed or being used for lateral movement. Hopefully the latter, because we can protect against that pretty well.
We can protect against lateral movement. Can he?
With this vulnerability, it's a bit more difficult, but with a good segmentation, probably yes. Also, because if you think about it, you can. It depends on which host have the client, but like I assume that a file server with data from critical data that shouldn't have ScreenConnect on it, because I think that they will not use it. I hope, at least.
Make sure that you have bastion host or jump host to do your administrative task, instead of using the client or connect directly to the server, which I think is a bad idea.
So for sure, a good segmentation might help at least limit the
if all your hosts are in ScreenConnect, including all the servers, then it's a hard time to protect yourself against the ransomware. There's still one solution at the end. If you look at the attack chain, the last part is hopefully have some endpoint detection and response tool installed, or an antivirus that can detect malicious activity.
Some kind of EDR on the endpoint.
EDR on the endpoint.
Yeah, we see that over and over again in our security operations center. That is the last resort where we catch bad guys.
As long as that EDR is running in prevention mode, then should stop the attack. But it is your last resort. If that fails, then you're lost.
And chances are, I believe, that you might have exclusions if you're running this as a legitimate tool, so might be allowed.
Yeah, but the ransomware isn't legitimate.
No, the ransomware, of course.
Hopefully.
Hopefully that should be blocked, yes.
Explain again on how you stop the lateral movement.
Yeah, so if you make smaller, let's assume you want to put everything in place right. Then you want to have a host that you use for administrative tasks. Maybe you should add that to ScreenConnect, because you want remote access. That's easier. You don't have to travel and go to the physical location. And that host can then do maintenance tasks on where it's allowed to connect to. And you put basically a firewall in between that makes very specific policies, very clear on what is allowed to do, and all the traffic is being blocked. So if you need to manage a firewall of a file server, maybe you can do RDP to it.
So you don't install ScreenConnect everywhere?
No.
What you do is you have the device, the server that needs to be connected on the internet is still connected on the internet. Well, hopefully with an IPS in front of it, but then that device is in a separate segment.
Yeah,
and therefore, if you have to go from that device to somewhere in the rest of the network,
you need to pass.
You pass a firewall again.
Yeah, and that should have good policies, very strict policies on what's allowed to do. Maybe SSH, maybe RDP, but hopefully not SMB, so the file exchange protocol.
Just what you need.
Just what you need. Yeah.
Sounds like zero trust. Yeah. Do you think that helps? Would that hinder your efforts to get in?
That would definitely make your life harder, yes. There are still ways to do that, especially if there's a RDP, for example, and somebody managed to RDP in a host where the attacker is already there, it can get the credentials. I mean, there are several ways, but for sure it will make the life harder.
I have one final question. There's a lot of times this vulnerability was apparently used in this case for Change Healthcare. Lots of other healthcare organizations got a victim of this. Is this is it that big or unknown? What can we? It's probably guessing why this happened so much with this particular software.
Yeah, it was. I think if I look at the attack, it was an easy attack. You don't need many fancy tools for it. It's just a crafted HTTP request to reinitiate the setup wizard, and then you completed the first step. You had access to the hosts. So I think that maked it
too easy and widely used.
Yeah, widely used.
And it's a really good target because you already have access to a lot of hosts. So
we're lucky we have money. Network segmentation to the rescue. Gentlemen, thank you very much. There is a infographic available on our website, threat-talks.com, for more information and all the details of how this attack worked exactly. Feel free to use it in your own presentations or just for research. And let me thank our guests. Luca, thank you very much for your insights. Rob, thank you very much for your solutions.
Thank you.
And you, listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, please like us and subscribe us. That helps us spread the word any further, and it will make sure that you will have a notification next Tuesday, because every Tuesday you can expect one of these videos from us. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Leave it in the comments, or you can also send us an email the old-fashioned way to team@threat-talks.com. From the Security Operations Center floor here at OnThreat, I thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by OnThreat CyberSecurity and AMX-IX. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.